Good morning, everyone. Good morning. I'm Julie Markham. I'm your chair of adult ministry. I'm gonna make sure to get us started off on time today because I know we have a number of speakers and a lot they want to share with us. Good morning, Jim. So tomorrow is Juneteenth and Tuesday is World Refugee Day. So last year, this week in the summer, we had someone come, Dr. Beverly Bond from the University of Memphis, to give us a history of Juneteenth celebration in this country. And this year we have the No Longer Strangers team from Idlewild to talk about that ministry. And I think we'll probably just alternate like that because both of those are very important days. So I want to just get us started really quickly with a word of prayer. And then I do want to caution you, I know everyone's going to have a lot of questions. People who showed up on a rainy Sunday are enthusiastic about the topic, and I'm glad that y'all are here. If we run over, though, we run into worship. So we have less time in the summer to get the job done. So if you have questions after we've closed, I have been assured that your team will talk to you and answer any questions. Y'all know them all. So please, if we run over, please let us all get to worship. Okay, I'm just going to open us with a quick word of prayer. Gracious God, we thank you for even the rainy days, the stormy days that wake us up in the night and remind us that you've given us breath to enjoy that night and this day. And we thank you for that. And we thank you for our time together. And most of all, we thank you for the No Longer Strangers ministry team here at Idlewild who are doing the work that you've been calling your people to do for thousands of years, to offer hospitality in a radical way, and to show the generosity and love of your Son, Jesus Christ, in whose name we pray this morning. Amen. Okay, can y'all hear me well? Is this good? Thanks, Julie, for the introduction, and mainly for inviting No Longer Strangers to speak at Adult Forum today. I see a lot of familiar faces, but for those of you that don't know me, I'm Melissa Peeler. I'm the current chair of the No Longer Strangers Ministry and former chair of Idlewild's Outreach Leadership Team. We have two things making their way around or maybe in your hands already. One is an invitation that I'll talk about in a little bit, and one is a sign-up sheet. If your interest is perked, look at Jim. He's going to pass that around. Just put your name and contact information, and we're going to be sure to reach back out and get in touch. So just for a minute, I want to go back and tell you and remind you a little bit about how the No Longer Strangers ministry was created at Idlewild. So if you would, in your mind, go back to about 2018, 2019, and think about the environment around immigration. Donald Trump was president. He started his campaign coming down the escalator saying Mexicans were rapists and drug dealers, all the build the wall chants, that kind of thing. He basically zeroed out the refugee resettlement program in America. The Syria crisis was in full swing. Idlewild had a member, our own member, picked up by ICE and deported to Mexico. It's just a very bleak, ugly time for immigration. And the outreach leadership team, with the support of the pastoral staff, certainly, and under the leadership of Sarah Dorian Christian, began a year-long study of immigration and what might be the Christian response to it. And like all good Presbyterians, we started in scripture. So in November of 2019, we invited congregants to come together with us. We watched movies, we studied the causes of migration, we studied U.S. immigration policy, the different ways historically and present day, the different way our denomination, other churches had responded
And we went around and visited local nonprofits like Latino Memphis, Las Americas, World Relief. And finally, in February of 2020, we planned a trip to the US-Mexico border to see and learn firsthand about the immigration crisis there. And Linda is going to tell us about that trip.
So we were all ready to go to the Mexican border. How did we do that? We consulted with the PCUSA binational ministry called Frontera de Cristo, formed exactly for these purposes of doing immigration ministry at the borders. They were located in Douglas, Arizona, and worked with the sister city Agua Prieta, Sonora, Mexico. So we were excited to go. The Reverend Mark Adams, who some of you may remember was has an Idlewild link. He served here as a summer intern about 25 years ago when he was in seminary. Mark is the American director of Frontera de Cristo, and with our fearless leader, Melissa Peeler, he was able to put together a schedule for our 5 days in Mexico. This is our group, the Frontera Six, as we call ourselves. It's Kristen Kuhn, Judy Johnson, Ann Ferguson, our leader, Melissa Peeler, Margaret Apple, and me, Linda Scholl. We were anxious to get to the border wall. I mean, that was the main thing that got our hearts pumping. And the picture on the right shows you what we found on the American side of the border. Notice the razor wire. It was dark and daunting and hostile, evoked all kinds of emotions of negativity. In contrast, the other side of the screen shows the Mexican side of the border with large, beautiful murals painted along the wall representing hope, love, joy, peace, unity. So it was quite a contrast. As with all ministries, one of the main ministry partners was the church. There was a little Mexican Presbyterian church that not only housed us, but also fed us. 70% of this congregation were migrants. We enjoyed eating in their homes, shabby as they were. If you'll notice the ceiling and the walls, some of the places didn't even had dirt floors. But on this night, we went to Ada's house and we learned how to make tortillas. And that was a lot of fun, but even more fun was eating them. We had some of the most delicious food you could ever imagine. The next day was kind of an emotional day as we learned about those migrants that chose not to go through the legal process, the ones that we always hear about. This is the Tree of Life. It was located on a ranch nearby, where locals and volunteers would on a weekly visit most of the time bring gallons of fresh water, food, and medical supplies and leave under those boughs of the trees. This was for the traveling groups of migrants that would travel many times in the night. We then walked a half a mile in their shoes and got to experience the wilderness walk as we made our way to the wall. When we got there along the way, we couldn't help but notice ladders in the grass that were used probably to help them get across the wall. That evening, we went to Douglas and took part in a vigil, remembering all those lost souls that lost their lives in the desert trying to get across. It was a very, very moving experience and a powerful emotional day for us. This next slide represents something a lot closer and dear to my heart. This is Cafe Justo y Mas, a wonderful little coffee house and gathering center across the street from where we stayed at the church. It's not only just a coffee house, it is also the site of a roasting facility. 20 years ago, Frontera de Cristo helped them form a coffee farmers cooperative, a way for them to sell their coffee on a fair trade plus basis so that they could create jobs and create a fair living so they didn't have to immigrate outside of the country. Coffee beans are grown and harvested in Chiapas, South Mexico, shipped to Agua Prieta, where they are roasted, packaged, and shipped for purchase orders all across North America. We got to tour the roasting facility. If you see the slide up in the top right corner, it was a lot of fun, and it was nice having that across the street because we got to enjoy incredible coffee. Now, we are offering this to the congregation as part of this ministry. So as you probably know, we sell it on the second and fourth Sundays of each month outside the sanctuary following worship. We invite you, if you haven't already, to buy a bag, $10, and enjoy this wonderful coffee. And if you're interested in our coffee ministry, you can sign up on the sheet that Jim is going to be passing around. Our last afternoon was spent at the Migrant Resource Center, which is located right next to the gate at the border crossing. We met this sweet little family with two adorable little girls, and we got to spend some time with them. They were next on the list to be summoned for their asylum interview, and they had to live outside the gate under a tarp. So the Migrant Resource Center provides them bathroom facilities, laundry facilities, a kitchen, and a little toy room for the girls to play. So we spent a couple hours hanging out with them and working on an art project that we brought with us. Just as our journey began at the wall, it also ended at the wall, this time on the Mexican side. This just happened to be Ash Wednesday, and Mark Adams led us in a beautiful Ash Wednesday service. And the family came to the service as well, so it was a wonderful ending to our journey. We came back to Memphis and to our immigration group here at Idlewild with the idea that walls can be barriers and dividing walls of hostility, but we as the church have an obligation to train them into places of encounter, to be a welcoming influence, to welcome immigrants and refugees with love and understanding. I turn it back to Melissa.
Thanks, Linda. That was great. So literally days after we returned from the border, COVID hit. I mean, within that week. And the year-long discernment process kind of got sidelined a little bit, or put over to the side. But we had hoped to finish by Easter. It was delayed until late fall that year, but we did go through the creation of new ministry plan, and we were approved for a budget by session and OLT the end of that year. The 5 areas of focus, basically advocacy and activism. We do that through a listserv, an email listserv. We still support Frontera de Cristo and Cafe Justo. There was a piece about assisting immigrants with the legal process, but the need for that it's a good thing that it's fallen away. So we're not trying to do that. And then Immigration Sunday. So like we said, we're here trying to kind of PR the ministry and what's going on around immigration. But the big fun thing that we also do is the Good Neighbor Welcome Team. So David and Donna are going to get us started with that piece of the ministry.
Okay, after the No Longer Strangers team was assembled, there were, I think, about 9 or 10 of us. We went through training. We had to get background checks. I think we all checked out fine. And then the first refugees that,
We're go.
no, go back. I didn't know that was here. I had that later. Okay, before we talk about who came, this is what Idlewild did for our refugees. Now, this is Michael and Melissa's living room and dining room and kitchenette. I mean, we had everything ready from furniture to toilet tissue to soap and toothpaste. Okay, so then the first immigrants that come were Idris and Alameen from Sudan. They were originally from Eritrea. Their family was Eritrean, but these 2 young men, aged 29 and 27, spent their entire life in a Sudanese refugee camp. About around 30,000 people, they said, all living in tents. Sadly, though, we quickly discovered that they had relatives. They had an aunt in Utah, Idaho, thank you, who after 2 weeks, they told us, we have airline tickets and we're leaving. So, and we had a great time with them. You'll see some of the things we did. So we knew our time with them was going to be short.
Well, and, you know, they had nothing but T-shirts when they came, and I don't know, did we talk about the World Relief Training?
Yeah, we've had the training.
Okay. But here they are, just going to the grocery store. They were put up in an extended stay hotel. During that time, portable housing was just not available. And at the time, we didn't know they were just gonna be here 2 weeks. So thank goodness we didn't have an apartment and get it furnished when they turned around and flew to Idaho. But it was just an interesting experience, even getting them a phone, which you see on, okay, that's all right. So we had just get-togethers. This was at Mellow Mushroom. You see Barron with one of the brothers down at the river, just getting them familiar with Memphis. And I guess was this in your backyard, maybe?
Right.
But
But
then
the-
we took them to Crosstown to see our grandson Wiley's band play. And at the Global Cafe, they fixed these guys Sudanese food.
It's also interesting, what I failed to tell you is that neither one of them spoke English. The older one spoke a little bit. I know when he got off the plane, he said hello, and Melissa goes, English, we thought we heard English. So the only way that David and I could talk to them was through our phones. We would write it down and translate it into Arabic, and they would answer us. Okay. But eventually their case was transferred to Idaho, and another agency picked him up. So here's a picture of Idris, the older brother, with his first full-time job in America. And now he's speaking English, and it's a fish packing plant in southern Idaho. Excuse me, I gotta get you. Which brings us to nearer to the present day, and this is the Akrami family from Afghanistan. The father is.
Good, are you?
Go back, Melissa. The father is Basir, the mother is Kadira, the older child is Elena, who was 3 at the time, I believe, and the baby we thought was an infant, we were told, but she was 11 months old and running around like crazy.
They're from Afghanistan, and they were there as part of the fall of Kabul that summer of 21. Basir worked for the U.S. Embassy, so here they are fleeing through the Kabul airport. Now, this is before the masses of 100,000 people, but they still had to leave. He would have been killed by the Taliban because he worked for the government and possibly his family as well.
And it's ID.
And Basir said because he had the idea of working for the U.S. Embassy, that helped him get into the airport and out because it's proving that that was an obligation of the U.S. But when they came here, they flew from Kabul to Qatar, and then from Qatar to El Paso. And the government had set up refugee camps there with tents, bathrooms, and so forth. So they were there for 2 months, getting their indoctrination, immunizations, some minimal clothing. They had no luggage when they left Kabul.
Okay, finally, they're in Memphis. The Akrami's flight was in very, very late. In fact, some of us didn't go because we were gonna have to go to the airport at midnight. And so Melissa, Michael, and Linda met them. Here we are meeting them at the airport for the first time. And if you notice, there is no luggage. They've got a plastic bag that had, and one little bag that had what they'd gotten in El Paso. We'd been told Sana, the little one, was an infant. Here she is in mom's arms. And we're really surprised when we didn't have a little bitty baby to hold. Excuse me.
Okay, okay, we forgot to turn our.
I know, I saw that.
Okay.
It was in the middle of COVID, and there, like David said, there was a huge housing shortage, and World Relief had not found a place yet for this family of 4. So the minister at Woodland Church, Matt Miller, and his wife, Brandy, took them in for 5 or 6 weeks. Now they have a family, they have 4 children. So the 6 of them took these other 4 in, and the Akramis lived with them for 5 or 6 weeks. I love this picture of Alina, just getting to know us, know English. And this is the picture, you see Kadira, the taller one in the back. This is the only time you'll see her hair. Because if David had walked in, she would have gently gotten up, gotten her scarf and wrapped her hair so that you would not be offended by her hair or see how long it was down here.
Just again, some pictures of getting together, helping them feel comfortable and getting to know Memphis. Even though we're not in an apartment yet, just taking them around places.
This is back at the Peelers, I believe. All right, there was an awful lot of paperwork to do at World Relief. So there was this is one day that I happened to be there, and I don't remember, somebody else was there with me. Melissa, you and I took care of the little
Babysat.
girls. We tried to keep them calm and collected. The next picture is halal meat. There are about 3 places in Memphis you can buy halal meat. And it was an education for us. Of course, we had to get them there. We had to find them.
Well, and that's one of the things that was our main responsibility for several weeks and months was just driving. We had to take them everywhere, pick them up, and we had a great team, even sign up sheets of who was gonna
Well,
drive.
And it wasn't just like getting in the car. First you had to go to Melissa's and get the car seats, and then you had to put them in your car, and then you had to go get them, and then you had to take the car seats back to Melissa's, but we did it. All right, this, you got the grocery store, didn't you, the shopping? Okay. Again, showing of Memphis, their new home, down to the river, and then you can see them at the Metal Museum. I love this little picture. This is baby Sana. And there are 2 reasons for this picture. Number 1 is she's wearing a Duke shirt. So, obviously they were perfectly content to have whatever clothes anybody would give them. And 2, they've got vegetables that they grew in in the Miller's yard. This is still at the other people's house that they grew in the yard, and Kadira would cook for them. She even threw a party for their friends and did all the cooking.
Well, it's just hard to imagine the difficult circumstances leaving with 2 little girls, but we tried to just make it as normal as we could. And believe me, it was just like relating to anybody you've ever.
Yeah.
So finally, World Relief comes through in the park. Wonderful choice. The rent was right. This is on North Highland near Sam Cooper. So it was really easy for all of us to get there driving and taking places.
And this is not one picture. That was 3 different pictures.
Just setting up the
Okay,
apartment.
and you saw the picture of the apartment empty, and it took us a full day to get it set up. But again, we had silverware in the drawer and plates in the cabinet and tea kettles on the oven, on the
Clean
stove.
the bathroom.
We cleaned the bathroom, cleaned out the crummies. There's go
Okay.
back one. There's a funny story quickly about the bedroom and a picture of Michael setting up the bed. We got everything set up one day, ready for them to move in, go to sleep, take a bath, brush their teeth, whatever. So we get the bed all set up. And Jim, were you the one? Somebody sat on the bed and it just collapsed. And we thought, okay, well, we'll just leave it on the floor. I'm sure that's kind of what they're used to do. Royal Relief said, you can't have it on the floor. So Michael ran and did a quick repair. And then this is the little girl's room. Okay.
Well, thank you, Doctor.
Yeah.
One of the things that happened just as we were getting the Wi-Fi is Basir fell on one of the wood decks of the apartment and
Gosh.
got his hand on a nail that was protruding. So had to get to the emergency room, and we had a good doctor to take him.
Dr. Lavernier.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
we finally got him Wi-Fi. because it was a nearby Xfinity hotspot or something, so, and their phones worked on Wi-Fi. And then other thing that happened is he had an infection in the teeth. So he had to go get wisdom teeth extracted. So I took him to UT dental school, lining up at 5:30 in the morning for their not free service, but did that work?
Yeah.
Yeah, and got him in, got his teeth pulled. You couldn't even go into the school because of COVID. And then the first thing that, when I met him, is he wanted to go get a haircut. Because he hadn't had a haircut in a long time. So I took him to Fantastic Sam's and paid for it because I figured it cost him 50 cents a copper. And he wasn't too happy with it.
He was so sweet. He said, it's okay. It will grow out. Okay, and the little girls, you can see the apartment set up. They're ready to go. This is one of my favorite stories. I was over visiting one day and little Alina just popped up, went into her bedroom, was gone for a while. And when she came back, she had a black scarf, a long black scarf on her hand. So she sat on the sofa and she did the scarf just like mommy, which makes me think, I don't care if you're from Afghanistan, you still want to play dressed up like mommy. The Children's Museum was the big hit, and they even threw a birthday party for Linda, who spent a lot of time babysitting the girls. This is dinner at our house. And I will tell you, the cultural differences were the only differences. You know, the love, what's important to them, family, health, what have you, is the same. Culturally, it's different. I took this picture because this is my plate at the bottom. So you see, I've eaten a little bit. I've got a fork, I've got a napkin wadded up, and I've got my iced tea there. Now you notice that the whole meal, they never touched the fork, a knife, a napkin, and wanted nothing to drink because they ate with their fingers. Everything was their fingers. Culturally, that's kind of shocking. But then I also understand that they didn't need at the table. In Afghanistan, you gather with the family on the floor. Birthdays came and went. This was actually Sana, the baby's birthday, but Sana didn't care. She was crying, and Alina just decided it could be hers. Very quickly, I told you what a great cook Kadira is. This is some of the food that she served us for the birthday party. Beautiful, beautiful food. And some of you may have been at the Women of the Church event when she cooked for us, and her specialty pastries.
And, you know, we had to take them to get a social security card. The visas gave them authorization or their admission papers, but they had to get social security cards. Well, they had gotten social security cards, I guess, in El Paso, and they were lost in the mail. So
Lost in
we,
the mail.
we had to go and just kind of beg with the clerk who helped work through the process and even gave us social security numbers written on a note so we could go get the bank accounts and so forth set up.
Basir's English was much, much better than Kadira's. So either Melissa or World Relief found, wanted them to start their English classes right away, and they found it, pardon?
I found it because it's a competitor to World Relief.
Oh, okay. All right, is a mommy and me class. So Kadira could start learning English, and the little girls could kind of get adjusted to the world. And the neatest thing about it was, y'all, it was 3 mornings a week. And lo and behold, for us, a bus picked them up every morning and took them and brought them back home. So we were just getting him back and forth for that.
But one of the big things that happened is Basir wanted to be involved in technology, even though he didn't have that background. He had a bachelor's degree in Kabul, but not in technology. So in Memphis, at Crosstown, is a program called 901 Tech. And he signed up for it, got admitted to it, passed all the exams, got his certification, and then he got a job with a computer repair company downtown.
Studied like crazy.
And this is the pickup spot. Again, to get him to work, pick him up from work, and we had this sign that sheet, who's gonna do it what day? And then the big thing also is getting his driver's license. And this was just a very happy moment for him because he passed, got to take the test just like anybody else at 16 years old. So he passed the written and the driving test and got it. But no car yet.
Ta-da!
Well, it was supposed to, World Relief had supposedly arranged for a car to be given to the Millers that it would be turned over to Vasir. It took weeks and weeks for that to come through. And then we get the title and going through Wanda Halbert's office at Shelby County Clerk. I mean, it was bizarre. Finally, somebody from World Relief said, I'm going down and sitting in the office until they hand it to me and I'm not leaving.
All right. That's got mine and David's involvement. Now we're gonna turn it back over to Melissa for the more good news.
And we did get good news, last fall. Kadria found out that she was expecting. Normally, and kind of in the plan of the ministry, we knew we were committing at least 6 months to this family. But not only was Basir diagnosed with adult onset type 1 diabetes, but Kadria was pregnant. So we kind of made an executive decision as a group. We're just going to kind of keep our focus here. It was taking a lot of love and attention. And we didn't end up getting a third family last year, but stuck with the Akrami. This is just a reminder that during this time, Ukraine broke out. So there had been a lot of, it's just like the attention went away from Afghanistan. It just kind of overnight, we were much more concerned, the news and everything else, focus on Ukraine, which brought up a lot of emotional things. It's kind of a PTSD to see another whole country being, the similarities of how quick it happened, how many refugees were, how many people fled at the same time. So there was a lot of conversation, a lot of memories came back when Ukraine started. I'm just going to go through these quickly, but just more live pictures of things we did. A lot of times when we took Kadria, y'all know how many appointments there are when you're pregnant. When we would take Kadria, a lot of times somebody would babysit the kids at home. That's a picture of another birthday when Kadria was, yes. Yes. Yes, we want to share the love within the church. We need bodies and big hearts because we do hope to host another family. Just more pictures of day to day. This was a day at the zoo when Kadria was feeling especially exhausted and a little sick to her stomach. So we got outside to get some fresh air. And eventually baby Rezvan did come absolutely on his own schedule in the middle of the night, but was a super healthy birth experience. I always try to point out some of the God things that I saw in this whole experience. Kadria's English teacher at Multinational Ministries, which Multinational Ministries is one of our community support grant recipients. But her teacher was also a doula and they had a deep bond. So the plan was she would be with her during birth. The team would take care of the kids. Basir culturally had never been at a birth of one of his children. He had 2 little girls. But we kind of encouraged him to be close by, which he was. But and Rezvan, I think that's his 4-month appointment, was just it was just a joyful experience for all of us. But about this time, we felt like we had done a great job, the welcoming team. We had done what we hoped to. We really got him started off well, integrated into American life, but you know, culturally, we were different folks. We loved them. They loved us. But in the whole flood of Afghans coming to America, you know, they had friends in other parts of the country. And a dear friend of Basir's was in Falls Church, Virginia. And all along they were able to stay in touch. And he just kept encouraging and kept encouraging. There's a big Muslim population around there. And I guess it was probably February, March, we got a real idea that they were going to go ahead and make that leap and make a move to Virginia. So just like we wanted to welcome them well, we also wanted to send them off well. So we got to work on all the to-do lists of how to leave Memphis and get set up in Virginia. This reminds me, all along, Basir had to work on, he came in as an SIV, special immigrant visa. His papers were are good through October of 24. I'm sorry, October of 23. So he had to go through, the US government was saying, we think you're going to get asylum. We think that your story is true, but he actually has to go through the whole process of pleading his own case for asylum. And this is the family. Linda went with him to Nashville, is where his immigration court was. And it's actually, his lawyer is from CLC Community Legal Center, which, plug for community grants again, is another one of our recipients. She is lovely and has stayed with them. If he has another follow-up court date, it'll be in Virginia. She won't be able to go. But just lots of good folks working for the good of all in Memphis. This was Alina's first haircut. So we did have a big goodbye party, and yes, a few tears were shed. That was our gift to them, was kind of picture books of all of our times together. And that's our whole crew. And I want you to look at those faces and know that Sarah's not here today, Barron's not here today, Laurel's not here today. But y'all know Jim and Claire, Michael, me, Linda, and the Rhodes. We are not covering everything. We're not telling you every story that we have. Pick our brains. We'd love to chat ad nauseum about our experiences. It's been positive for everybody. And we've loved it. And we do hope to do another one. This catches me every time. The night before they left, you know, there's a lot to do. We got to pack up. We've got a lot of paperwork and that kind of thing. And we were exhausted. Everybody was kind of helping with everything. But driving home the night before they literally were leaving, there was huge rainbow all across Sam Cooper. And I texted Basir, I just saw a rainbow. It's so beautiful, but mainly, please try to get to bed early. You've got a huge day tomorrow. Driving to Virginia.